you can't be an imposter in your own game. That's not how that works. Hi, welcome back. It's Mercedes from Art by Shades, where we tackle loving ourselves, loving our bodies, and taking your art from a hobby into a business. You guys gotta excuse me. I'm trying to get comfortable in this camera situation, and so if it looks stiff, if I need to move around more, let me know. I'm trying to improve. I take constructive criticism. So yeah. And I say all that to say that today's video is about working on imposter syndrome as a new artist. So, this is me working on my imposter syndrome as a YouTuber. Yeah, YouTuber, sure, right, okay. A good example here would be like, when do I consider myself a YouTuber? Would it be when I posted my first video, or when I actually get my first set of followers or subscribers? It's over here on YouTube, subscribers. When do I consider myself a YouTuber? The same can be said for when I consider myself as an artist. The first thing I would like to talk about would be when you're comparing yourself to other artists. A lot of the times the artists that lands on our timelines, or even the art that we see in stores and other places that we go, these people have years of practice. They've been studying and practicing this art for God knows how many years. Obviously, some of them will depend on when they started, but sometimes it's identifying what you're bringing to the table, what your technique is. So you need to kind of take everything with a grain of salt, because obviously if you just started, or even if you've been doing it for years, your journey is going to look very different from someone else's. I myself have found myself looking at other artists on Instagram, or just other art that end up in hotels and things like that, and I say to myself, I could do that, but I don't know if I can execute it as well. And what does it take for me to actually get there? And I go into a downward spiral where it's like, you know what, I definitely don't have enough years. I definitely should probably go to school and learn like everyone else. But realistically, I work as a scientist. I have a day-to-day job. I can't just decide I'm gonna just pick up and go to school, because not only would I not be able to afford just dropping everything, but I need to afford the life that allows me to take care of things that I already have, like student loans, where I live, all of these things. So going back to school to learn art, that's not really feasible for me. And a lot of the programs don't allow for night school for artists. So realistically, I have to learn from teaching myself, watching other YouTube videos, just seeing different techniques and seeing what works for me. So as a new artist, and I'm comparing myself to other artists, it's hard for me to say, you know what, my journey definitely looks like theirs. No, I know I have to address all of these things and just say, you know what, I am a new artist. I can look at them as aspirations, or even goals that I want to have, either long or short term. But I need to be realistic with myself about what comparing myself to other artists actually should look like. I've also found myself downplaying the growth that I've had. So I started off with a few like pour paintings and things like that. So I was like, you know what, everybody loves abstract art. And that was a way for me to actually express myself through art. I was going through a tough time. So I'm like, you know what, I'm just gonna go and put a bunch of beautiful colors on a canvas. And then I realized that pour painting is not as easy as it looks. It looks like you're just pouring paint on a canvas, but that's not truly it. There's certain things like densities to the paint, and actually making sure that you have complementing colors. There's a lot of things, not just because you love all these colors that you want to put on there, it means that it's going to come out beautiful. I started off pouring, And then I decided I want to introduce figures. So I did some pour painting with some figures. And then I just decided, you know what? I'm going to challenge myself, especially as a lifelong learner. I'm going to challenge myself with trying to do skin tones. I'm going to try to do shading. I'm going to try to do a lot of other things. And over all that time, I'm like, man, this stuff still sucks. But I didn't realize that I started from abstract into going into something else. And then now actually having figures that look like real people. I'm excited to say, you know what? I have growth now. But back then I would be like, you know what? This still looks like crap. I'm still not good enough, this and that. And it was unfair to myself in going through all of that. So it was hard for me to bridge that gap of you are still an artist whether you are where you want to be. Another thing is, I don't know when I actually identified myself as an artist. I think I have a vague idea, and I think that was when I actually made my first sale, which was from a friend. But realistically, I said, you know what, I sold my first paintings, therefore I am an artist. When in reality, it's when I committed to years of practicing and learning new techniques that made me an artist. I have had a similar experience to where I went to years of school to become a scientist, and when I started my first job in a lab, a man that had just started the company came to me and said, hey, like, what do you do here? And I went into this long-winded explanation of all the things that I do there, and he was like, oh, so you're a scientist. And I had already been there for a couple years or so, and I never identified myself as a scientist. So I know that this imposter syndrome definitely can be across the board. And it was like, you know what, I became a scientist the day that I landed that job. Not necessarily, actually even before that. I became a scientist when I was doing studies in my undergrad. I became a scientist at that point, but it just never hit me until somebody else acknowledged it, which was unfair to myself. It should have been myself who just said, you know what, you are a scientist. I should have spoke that into myself. I'm going to take a moment out of this video to just say at this point, if you like what I've said so far, or if you like some of my content that you've seen so far, feel free to like and subscribe to my channel. Now I want to go into some advice that I have when dealing with imposter syndrome. The first thing I would recommend is identifying what you bring to the table. Your art is unique. You have experienced many things that make you, for lack of a better word. So you can bring that into your art. You can always have people that copy or mimic, but nobody is going to actually create anything identical because obviously they bring their own predispositions to that. So I think you just need to identify what unique aspect that you bring to the table, and you can just kind of just go headlong into that, and that will reduce the likelihood of you comparing yourself to other artists, because then you are in your own niche, you're in your own lane. The second thing is honestly going deeper into reveling in what makes you unique. Whether you like big butts, if you like dark skin, if you like grayscale, like a lot of my work is grayscale. So I enjoy seeing things absent of color. That's why I kind of played on art by shades, because I want to have different shades of color to create something that is still beautiful regardless. I've started incorporating some pops of color here and there, and I've also been playing around with different brown skin tones, but realistically my idea is to play on the different shades. Now I just think that's something very beautiful, and I have some people that actually agree with the same thing. So find something that makes you unique and revel in that. Just exploit that to the ends of the earth, until it doesn't work. Or maybe even if you found something new that you like, you can go and explore that as well. But just Celebrate your unique outlook and what you can bring to the art. The third piece of advice that I have is basically, you have to start somewhere. Everybody has to start from ground zero. Even if you were to go to school, you have to start from kindergarten to get to 12th grade. You have to start somewhere. So you just need to be patient with yourself and run your own race. You are going to kind of like hit the bumps different from somebody else. You may end up having a great streak throughout a period before you hit some type of bump in the road. But realistically, your journey is going to look very different. So you need to kind of exploit all of those ideas that come with that journey, so that you can just say, hey, you know what? I am still an artist in my own right because of all of these things that I have experienced and everything that I have explored and all of the things that I have learned. So, you can't be an imposter in your own game. That's not how that works. And the last thing I would like to leave with you is, if you love it, there's an audience for you. So you may have to work a little harder to find those people, but there's an audience for you. Every piece of art or some type of creative aspect always has other people that think like you, because there's millions of people on this earth, billions of people on this earth. Somebody else will also have the same liking that you do. So you should be able to sell to whoever those people are. Now, in reality, what you want to do is have a decent enough amount of people so that if you decide to make this a business, then you have an audience to sell to. But at the end of the day, somebody is going to identify with the work that you create. Comment below and let me know how you deal with imposter syndrome and other recommendation that you may have for other people.